Good morning. Welcome to another Kerfuffle Showcase, and we're delighted today to have the architects, the geniuses, the powerhouse of suppliers at the moment, the estate agency. We have Heather and Tom from the Street Group. See, I even did my homework this time. Spectre, hello again, and obviously, as of last week, Street. Wait a minute, guys, and of course, my delightful assistants. I forgot David Mintz. Now, what I was meant to do, I was meant to roll around on my chair and go, Heather and Tom, we've been expecting you.
Oh my God,
that was the best cat I could get out of my Millie's thing. It was either that or the pig. But anyway, yeah. And then David, you were going to be mini me, but I've got the order wrong, so never mind. Anyway, Tom, Heather. You've had a bit of a belting week, I would imagine, whilst also sleepless nights. Really, I think quite nicely, though, it's sleepless nights for the right reason, because anyone would say that Street, the CRM system that you guys have been working on for the last few years, has gone down pretty well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I think we've been... well, the whole team's really happy with how it went. I think originally we obviously didn't want to launch it in the middle of COVID and remote, but actually it's, everybody's got used to Zoom and used to dialing into things, and we were pretty overwhelmed, would you say, Tom, with the numbers that actually dialed in?
Yeah, I don't think we would have been able to have that many people at a live event, nowhere near. So, there were some positives to launching during these weird times.
Didn't you break Zoom? Didn't you have too many people for Zoom to cater for?
It was the most stressful morning, honestly. We targeted, our aim for the company was 1,000 registrations, which honestly we always have these big hairy audacious goals that are stretch goals that you don't think you're going to achieve, and then we were getting closer to it and we're like, I think we might go over here. And then we realized on the morning of the webinar that Demio, which was the software that we were using, has actually got a max of 1,000 that can tune in. So we had to spin up another room because by this point we're about 1,100 and something. So we had to do 2 at the same time, which, on the morning of was a little bit stressful. I
happen to know that certain VIPs even didn't manage to bump their way into the main group. They were pushed into that overspill room, weren't they? Because they forgot to register in time.
Yeah, it was anybody who pretty much registered on the day, but obviously we got some press on the day, so there were quite a lot. We're in that separate room.
Take that, Mr. Number 1 most influential person. I'm catching you up. I was registered weeks in advance. I wasn't really, about on the Monday, wasn't it? Okay, so what have you taken from that? I mean, obviously there's a great. I think one of the nice things is a bit like the guys at Home Search. You guys have a lot of goodwill in the bank from clients, don't you? And that's fantastic to see. We're going to come on to some of the challenges you've got, but what were the positives you took from that level of interest so quickly?
I'll take this one. I think for us, choosing a CRM is a huge decision, and it's not something that people, make in a week and get signed up and change in a week, like they do with Spectre, for example. So the main thing that we wanted to achieve really was to let people know that this is here, this is what it looks like, this is where we're going, and just get that awareness, I suppose, around the industry, which I think we've achieved based on the response since the launch. And it's also given us a really good gauge of where we can go from here, how fast we can go, what we need to do. I think we've learned a lot, and the level of interest is fantastic, because it's obviously you spend 3 years building something and you hope that you get that, but you don't know until you actually launch it.
And it has been literally 3 years in the making, hasn't it? I mean, I've told you, and you've probably heard me because I repeat every story I ever hear about 1,000 times. I couldn't have kept a lid on it for that long. I'd have got it out after about 6 months. I don't know, Heather. You're much more detailed. You're just much more commercial than me. But was that the level-headedness of kind of Tom just saying, get it right before it hits even the kind of minimum viable product stage?
Yeah, that's 100% Tom.
Yeah, I think with Street, you're dealing with business critical software, so you can't really launch software in that kind of MVP model, because when it's the core piece of software people are using to run the business, you can't release a half-featured buggy version. It's just not going to work. So we always knew we were going to have to adopt. We actually adopted the phrase that's quite Silicon Valley at the moment, which is MLP, minimum lovable product.
You-
very American. Very American in Silicon Valley. But we wanted the team to know we weren't aiming for an MVP.
Yeah.
And with Spectre, we were lucky enough to be able to take our time. I think, if we were a startup or we were VC funded, I don't think we would have been allowed to take that amount of time. But we really wanted to get it to the point where it was ready. So yeah, and to be fair, we didn't know it was going to take 3 years.
I never do. It's always the really you set. Look, we're going to come on to some of the bits that really set you apart from what else is out there at the moment, and you always start off with those in mind, don't you? And then the really annoying bit comes along where we've got to do all the mundane bits as well. The mundane, but incredibly important bits, don't they? That are just now expected in a CRM system, and therein lies the challenge. I'll ask you at the end whether you would have done it again, but the point is here, you've managed to get it out there, and on the face of it, it's looking really, really positive.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think obviously when we first started imagining what we wanted to build, you obviously start off with, right, okay, we want to improve the customer experience, we want to improve efficiency. You don't sit down and start sketching out the details of a key management system, but obviously with a CRM, it needs to do all the basics well. You can't afford to have really flashy features on one end and then missing basic functionality on the other. So a good chunk of that 3 years was just making sure we're getting all the basic functionality right.
And Dave, you've been keeping an eye on this, obviously. I represent with the Stan and Ollie of property. I represent suppliers. Obviously, he represents agents.
I can't talk about it. I've signed one of those NDAs. I'm not allowed.
His NDA just for
Release me.
You released, David. You released.
Yes, well, I've known about this for ages. It's amazing. No, what's interesting, actually, watching the presentation that you guys did the other day, is that obviously you've benefited from this sort of almost Apple-style presentation that hitherto has not been seen in our industry necessarily. So I think that launch in itself was unique. But you also, at the end, Tom, came in and you sought to manage everybody's expectations. And there were certain sort of things that you said, look, we're not going to be able to deliver, for instance, the back end of lettings and management software. You made that very clear that at the moment, this is purely for core sales, and that you would then perhaps look at that in the future. How much of that is management of agents' expectations? Are you getting a lot of agents clamoring for that sort of functionality, and how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think we definitely are having agents approach us saying, we're currently on one combined system, and we wouldn't want to split out to two. So we knew that portion of the demand was going to be there. So we had to make a decision, because estate agency CRM is like it's an incredibly bespoke, but also it's quite a big piece of kit. Like, there is so much to it now. And so to add lettings management in to the initial build was just going to take it, the scope was just going to expand, and we were going to end up doing everything in a rushed way, or it was going to take 6 years instead of 3. And so we knew that there's a big chunk of the market who already use 2 separate systems, one to manage the kind of front end of lettings, advertising the properties, finding the tenants, that side of things, and then pass it off to a lettings management software. So we knew there were people who were already doing that. So we made the decision that we would focus on that front end part first, and then deliver the lettings management at a later date. And we're scaling our team as well. So that time that it would have taken us to build the lettings management in the past will be much, much more condensed. And we'll have the benefit of having a load of clients on there that are giving us feedback on exactly what they would want.
You can either do 2 things, can't you? It's the jack of all trades. You could have tried to launch with both of those, and you'd have probably had more issues with both the sales and the lettings. Or you can specialise and get one out at the best possible chance of success. Because the other thing, and we'll come on to this, is it's not like you can take on the entire industry waiting for you to do it anyway. So there has to be a sensible way of onboarding, and to sensibly onboard people, sales, as he says, gives you a real benefit. look, I don't want this to be a complete love-in, so I want to pretend at least I'm a bit Watkins-esque in terms of the questions we asked. We're on our Facebook group. We were saying we were obviously delighted to be talking to you guys, and somebody was on the face of it. It's a little bit harsh, but I'll read it out. What's the point of an estate agency CRM that doesn't do lettings? It's like serving a pot of tea without the tea bag. Which I think we'll all agree is the most English of roasts you can possibly get there. But I think that is the point, isn't it? Is especially if you. And by the way, what I think they genuinely mean there as well is when they talk about lettings, they're talking about the full CFP end of the spectrum. They're talking about accounts. Now, if you're going in to do, accounts as well in the way that like the likes of Agent OS has done in the past, you're talking a whole level of complexity because that's, that's. I don't want to say you can get away with bits of sales, but you can't get away with accounts being wrong in any shape or form, can you?
Do you want to take this, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, no, you can't. I think that kind of comment is understandable from somebody who is used to seeing everything in one system. There are a surprising number of people who already use two systems anyway, because if you think about the actual mechanics of marketing a property and finding a tenant versus managing a tenancy and accounts, the actual two processes are extremely different. So when I was in agency, and I know this is quite common, that you do tend to have quite a hard split in the team between those people managing the tenancies and those people doing the front end. And the reason that split exists, is because it is completely different processes. So, if you were to have a clean handoff between one system and another, then really there shouldn't be any downside to having your management and accounts managed in a different system. Providing you're trying to avoid kind of the double entry and data not being passed back and forth.
And look, last time I can't remember what the exact figure was, but it was certainly between about 60 to 70% of the people we did in one of our white papers still have two separate systems. So it's not like it's not like there's anything different here going on, is there? And I think you'll tell me better because I'm a complete bluffer, obviously, Tom, but there's a bit of a weird step change going on in technology, and certainly in the world over here, where, yes, going back just a few years ago, the aim was to build a leviathan of a system that did absolutely everything: sales, lettings, auctions, all of the apps that were out there, EDM solutions, absorbing all of these different things. And that was where, it seemed like the likes of ZPG Group were going, obviously buying in data companies. But actually now, because of the very nature of the way that open APIs and just in terms of the CRMs becoming more open now, you can still achieve the same thing, can't you? Whereby you're not having to rekey data. You're using different systems, like our friend, Christian Depository for the end of tenancy stage. But you're using the right tool for the job. But it's all joined together rather than the rather haphazard kind of Jenga pile that you've had in the past.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you actually look at the big applications that do everything, if you look under the hood, that's how they're built anyway. So without geeking out too much, like modern architecture is microservice based. Yeah. So, if you take something like, I don't know, Facebook, and you peeled the lid off, you'll have hundreds of different individual systems that are talking to each other via APIs. So, if those two things are two separate companies with two different brand names on, it doesn't really make a difference. Providing the data can be passed back and forth seamlessly, then it's much better to have smaller individual systems that do their job extremely well than it is to try and build one monolith that accomplishes everything.
And would you call that, is that like the APIization? Is that an app style approach then, really, in terms of what you're talking about there? Small, distinct systems, or is that something different?
No, that is something different. I think kind of app and marketplace ecosystems are different to integrations and microservices.
Thank you for being gentle and not making me sound.
I think what genuinely makes Street, and if you see it demoed the first time that you see it, hopefully, is love at first sight, because we are used to very functional software within the estate agency sector. We're not necessarily used to something that looks beautiful, though, when you're actually using it. So the actual user experience with Street, in terms of the way that it looks and it feels, is tremendous. So Simon, you'll know a well-known CRM company that you may or may not have been previously associated with, but it was extremely stable, but it looked like it had come out of a Russian submarine. So it had that utilitarian look and feel to it. Whereas when you get behind the wheel of Streets, it's completely different. How important was that UX and that whole experience to you guys? I mean, I know that a lot of programming has been done behind the actual functionality, but you've also got that balance right in terms of the way that it looks.
We are a bit obsessed with this in our entire team, because I think if you talk to any tech company and prop tech company, and I'm sure Simon, your time, the previous CRM company, you was probably the same, but you find that if something is difficult or not intuitive to use, people just don't use it as much. So software, as we do say it has to be beautiful, because if it's not intuitive and if it's not easy to use, people stop using parts of it or don't use it to its full potential. So we put a huge focus on UX and UI, and we've got some super experienced people in our team who come from very big companies with a lot of experience in exactly this to do that, which might seem like a bit of a luxury, but we think it's not a luxury. It's absolutely essential. And we sorry, go on, Simon.
I was just going to say, Brian from Akaboom he'll shout at me because he's always describing Akaboom as sexy. A little bit too much for my liking, actually. It's getting a bit weird, but genuinely, that was, I think, when you showed us it, that's the first thing I thought about. And it sounds ridiculous to be talking about a state agency CRM software in that way, but it would be all for nothing. You can have sexy, you can have it looking really, really clean if it does nothing. The point about this is that you've managed to weigh up both, haven't you? Because one of the challenges of CRM systems, for my little knowledge of it as well, is there are times when you need to present a huge amount of information on the screen for you to effectively do your job, and it's very, very difficult to present that in the right way without actually cluttering up the screen. So I think it's a tremendous compliment to you guys that you've managed to find a happy balance. Of course, the challenge will be as functionality inevitably gets layered and layered on. That's where a lot of these systems have gone down the way by, and I won't mention them, but there were certain systems you genuinely had to be Stephen Hawking to work it by the end of it. It was literally kind of passed down knowledge between Doris in the team would say, and this is where you find X, Y, Z. So it's really good. I mean, I think that's the judge of it, isn't it? My judge, as you know, as most people say, if it's been tested on me, it'll work pretty capably in this industry. And with 2 minutes of a demonstration, if you can find your way around and you're not kind of saying where that is, you've hit the nail on the head, I think.
Well, one of our beta testers, beta agents who's on it at the moment, has been using it for about the last 5 months, said to us the other week that it was embarrassingly easy to use, which I thought was a huge compliment to our UX and UI team, that's what they've achieved, because that's what we set out to do.
Is that the person I think I know?
Yes, you do know him, yeah.
Okay, all right. Good. Okay, look, so what's your immediate plans then? Of course, you've got to kind of control the way that this product is released, otherwise you'll get overcome with it. I know, Heather, you've always been a major proponent of the under promising and over delivering thing, and lots of people say that, but you in particular, I think that's the key, isn't it? We had I think it's a little bit of a heated argument. If you don't mind me, again, NDA.
Don't know what you're going to say, but
we were talking about you genuinely thought that you thought you might need to issue an apology because of the huge amount of demos, and I think it was we had a ridiculous amount of demos. It was like almost 100 demos based after that thing the other day, and that's on the back of an already latent level of interest there. So you're saying, do I need to go out there and actually apologise to people that they're not going to get it next week? I obviously, in customary fashion, went absolutely apoplectic and say, you do not apologise for anything. You can be sympathetic. You can talk about you would like to get there, but if it was easy, everybody else would be doing this. I mean, in all honesty, the people who need to be apologising are the providers of those companies that are rushing to you, saying we just don't feel like we're being looked after.
yeah, it was uncomfortable for me, I think. We put such a huge focus with Spectre on delighting people, under promise, over deliver. Our customer success team is almost 3 times the size of our sales team. I think that reflects how we think about, how we treat our clients, and they come first. It's literally in one of our 5 values. We are an advocate for estate agents, and they come first. So did we anticipate we'd have 1,100 plus registrations on this launch event? Honestly, no, we didn't. And then we knew from the people that had seen it previous to the launch event under NDA that we knew the response was overwhelmingly positive, and the usual response was, how quickly can we get on it? So that was all manageable. And then I thought, shit, basically, we're going to have 1,100 people tuning in. And if we get the same response that we've had from people that have seen it before, how are we going to manage this? And is that going to piss people off? All I want to do as a commercial person is say, yeah, come on board. Next week.
Probably wagging his finger in the background.
Yeah, and we've taken a decision, and Tom, I'm sure you'd agree with this, that we want people to be raving fans when they come onto the system, which so far, with all of our agents that are on it so far, I think it's fair to say that they are. And I think if we try and overstretch ourselves, we might lose that, and I don't want to do that. That's getting me to a point where I'm not comfortable with. So yeah, that's where that concern came from. But to be honest, that's our problem. We've got to manage it.
And it's a beautiful position to be in, where supply and demand are not quite on an even keel. You're always going to be, for the next 2 years at least, you're going to have a steady supply of customers. I suppose that's an ideal scenario that you probably didn't envisage a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, somebody commented on, I think it was an industry press article that said, I don't get it. Isn't this a SaaS product? You don't need to get involved. And I was like, I'm not sure people do switch mission critical software without talking to people and having people there. So yeah, we do need to manage it a little bit more carefully than just saying, here's your login details, off you go.
And I've got a little bit of experience here, so it's not like, we are. Abracadabra, data go from one system to another. Ding.
Well, on that note, you guys built a system called Bridge that specifically handles the transfer of data from existing systems over to Street, and it's included within any Street subscription. And that is something that Tom promised was going to evolve, and you were going to continue working on that over the next couple of years. That must be one of the biggest challenges. The fact that there are a multitude of CRM systems out there holding data in a number of different ways. And in terms of getting all the critical stuff over, we all want our databases, we all want our photos, our floor plans, our videos. We need it all. So I guess that must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, from a technical perspective, it's a huge challenge, because when you actually look at the data that comes out of the systems, you can see some of the kind of the evolution of the database structure, in the export. So you can see that over time they've had to add fields to accommodate new technologies and new changes in the industry. And then one of the core principles we've got within Street is a single source of truth. So a person, a property can only be in the system once, and that can be linked to lots of different things. So you get, no duplication, and you get a holistic view of the customer and things like that. Where that can be difficult is where you get an export from a different system, and you've got a person appearing, 3 or 4 times in the applicant export. They appear as a vendor, they appear as a landlord. The names are all slightly different because they've been entered by different people. So we knew that there was a huge technical challenge in getting that data, street ready, for want of a better phrase. So we knew that we needed to build a specific tool that we can keep developing, keep making better and better. But even with Bridge, we want to be really upfront with people that, getting all your data from one system to another system, it's not desirable. Personally, I don't think it's desirable, but it's also not possible. So what we've done is we've focused on getting the really key information over in a nice, clean format.
And again, is another reason why you would just avoid at launch stage doing sales, lettings, and accounts together, because as complex as sales data conversions are, you start moving into, again, adding in lettings, property management, and the one I don't think anyone's ever cracked is moving full historical accounts information across. Is just whether it's even possible, and I'm sure it is possible. You know, the amount that you'd be charging £100,000 for a one-office data conversion anyway, so it's totally uncommercially viable in the first place. But your main point there, Tom, I think is absolutely spot on. It's like, you know, there's an element here of rubbish in, rubbish out, and unless you're wholly confident that actually, you know, what you've got in your existing system is in the right place, get the really useful stuff out, past clients, appraisals, everything else, so you can prospect against it. But don't just bring everything because you're paranoid about potentially lose something that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
What about so you mentioned there everything's unique. There is that concept of like a UPR, a unique property reference, out there in the wider world. Will you be tying that together at some stage? Is that on the radar at all, or is that just purely your own development ethos for the street product itself?
No, so we're quite lucky in the fact that through Spectre we have a dedicated data science team who've been doing a lot of work on kind of UK property data science in the background over the last 5 years. So Street's lucky enough to be able to just hook into that. So they've got the full database of all properties in the UK and all the different bits of data that you can tie into that. So that's all leveraged on Spectre, but it's also leveraged within Street as well. So we've got a nice, convenient, pre-built single source of truth for properties. And of course, that allows us to link the two systems together as well.
So that was one of the things that popped up, that somebody was, again, having a bit of a pop in this, and there's a lot of moaning millies out there. Again, I don't know why Heather even agreed to come on the show, given that, again, in the morning she said, "Do I open up the comments on the webinar?" I'm like, of course you do. And of course, there was a few batshit mental people on there, weren't there? 2 seconds in, they haven't mentioned integration, they haven't mentioned lettings, they betrayed us. It's like, just chill the fuck out.
Yeah, it was funny, but what was more funny was the number of those that then subsequently inquired.
Well, we'll come on later on, but I hope they get a special price.
I was thinking, I wonder if they don't think that we know who they were, because I was just gobsmacked that they would, you know.
Heather, you're sounding a bit stalky there now. We know who you are.
It wasn't me, it was the devs.
This is Spectre, guys. They know where everybody lives, literally, not just where you work. It's scary.
Yeah. So, my point was there that somebody was having a bit of a point. Why have they bothered launching it without it being fully integrated with Spectre? What is the position there? I mean, I must admit, I just assumed that was going to be, if it wasn't there initially, it was inevitably going to be blended in. At the moment, is there any tie-in at all within Spectre and Street?
So we've got some really exciting stuff, obviously, coming with the integration. With the launch event, firstly, we had to pick and choose what we showed. There's just so much that we could have covered, and obviously, holding people's attention for an hour is difficult. If we went to the full demo, it would have been 3 hours.
In there like that.
But also, I think we kind of wanted to show Street off in the first instance on its own terms, rather than explicitly linking it to Spectre, because I think then people will be looking at it and thinking, right, okay, so your kind of USP is it's a CRM and prospecting combined. Of course, we're going to, do stuff along those lines, but we wanted to show it off in the first instance as a CRM, and then we'll have some announcements for Spectre clients on a different day.
But on Kerfuffle, of course, because I mean, otherwise you can't tease us like that and then not do that. Okay, well, I think you've intimated obviously enough there, because I mean, the obvious point there is, as everyone has, a CRM system layered with the functionality and data that is there in Spectre is a weapon of mass destruction in the right hands, isn't it?
There's some really cool stuff that we've built that will blow people's minds on that. But yeah, as Tom said, we couldn't launch everything in the same hour.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And just in terms of integrations in general, so what's the policy then of I think what this is about is just clearing up and clarifying a few either of the points or the urban myths that are out there. So have you made a policy? Obviously, you've got an open API. Have you made the decision that you are genuinely going to integrate with everyone, or will there be still a level of kind of yay or nay about it?
So with open APIs, the meaning of the word open is that there is no yay or nay. There is an API. You can generate your own key. You can build what you want. That's the principle of an API. Now, if you build something, crap that pollutes your database, then that's your own fault. But what we're doing is we've actually built the open API already. We're still in beta with Street, so we're still gathering lots of feedback from clients. We're still making changes at quite a rapid rate. And one of the comments that did come up, I think, on the industry press was, the API is not delivered yet. The reason we've done that is because we are still making slight tweaks. So what we don't want to do is put the API documentation out there, have people build their integrations, and then we change something and break their integration. So once we're confident that the API is solid and not going to change, then the documentation will go public. But we've built a lot of our own internal tools. So Bridge, for example, will import data using the API, which in the industry is known as eating your own dog food. So we do adopt the policy of eating our own dog food. So hopefully, if there's any problems with the API or it's not fully featured enough, then we feel that pain first and fix it before anybody else comes across it.
And a lot of the other comments that were made on the day, and again, this is to sort of address one of the elephants in the room, is all around what you guys on the supplier end of things refer to as financials, but we refer to as cost here in our side of the industry. But
wait a minute, David. Wait a minute. I've got something for this.
Oh, he's got an elephant. A beautiful kerfuffle pink elephant.
It's cost price.
So I think when you're talking about that, you've always been you've actually got a policy, haven't you, of absolutely transparent pricing. The cost per property is very clear from the outset. The scalable sort of volume discounts that you offer, it's there, it's published, and you sort of undertook during your presentation to keep it that way and to make it an absolutely sort of level playing field that way. But still people, here's one of the comments that we've had this morning. Can you confirm about pricing of Street seem to exclude smaller agents? Let's face it, that there needs to be a minimum number of properties where this becomes a viable proposition. You need to be a fairly substantial agency in order to take it on and make it work. What would you say to those people about your thoughts around pricing?
Do you want to take this, Tom, or shall I?
Yeah, no, I'll take it. I think I've got probably with my agency hat on. So when I was an agency, so our dad's agency is a one brancher, so it's a small independent agent. And I personally don't think the pricing does exclude those smaller agents. So, it starts at £600 per month, which I know, compared to some of the other CRMs out there is a bit more. Yeah. But in terms of just pure efficiency savings, what you can do with Street, I think possibly with the way we actually announced it on the launch event, we said it starts at 100 properties. Which I think is actually probably a bit of a misleading way to say it. So it starts at £600, and within that you can have up to 100 properties. But that isn't to say that this system doesn't work well for smaller agents. I think with the automation and efficiency and other pieces of software you might not need, with everything in one system, I still think it works very well at that price.
And people like, obviously you're a big fan, Mincy, and Ryan from Leader Fox came in and said, look, yes, it is more expensive to other CRMs, but you've got that decision in everything in life, haven't you? You can't sit here and critique the online agents for dropping their pants and delivering crap service and then completely be blinkered to the same argument and justification in this area, can you?
But there is some truth in what Tom says, that there were a number of products that we are currently using that we thought, well, actually, if we took a look at that, we can actually consolidate a lot of that within the functionality of Street anyway. So, and I think what's more important, this is one of the first CRMs that truly offers forget about the agents themselves, it's the actual customer experience on the other side of it. So it's the ability to let your vendors and the viewers, who, again, each one of those are potential clients for the future, but it's the ability to allow them to interact online, and that online functionality and just the time saving. And pure, I think one of the things that made us very excited here, and Simon, you'll know that our original discussions around any PropTech product that we sign up to instantly is one that limits the amount of time you have to spend on the phone doing tedious tasks, such as, are you free on Tuesday at 11 o'clock? Yeah, right. We'll call you back if that's convenient for them. And then you get on the phone to that. And literally that can take 15, 20 minutes. That's if you can get through to everybody first time. So I think the ability just to book a viewing or just to book a valuation at 3 a.m. in the, with nobody in the office overseeing that is superb. So I think that will free up time for estate agents to go out there and do what they do best.
I think you're spot on, David. One of the key things that I think is most interesting about genuinely it's overused, but the disruptional nature of what you've done here is think about that ultimately, of course, the estate agent is your client, but being able to impress and help the agent's own clients is the ultimate game, isn't it? Did that evolve over time, or did you have that in mind from the very beginning?
In terms of the consumer element of it?
Yeah. The B2C element, which really has been lacking from most people's approach. Certainly, it might have evolved in time over other ones. We had things like property trackers. I know many other systems did as well. But it seems to be absolutely rooted in the DNA of this product that you are thinking at every stage how you can support the agent with their own clients.
Very much from the start. Me and Tom have been on a bit of a crusade, I think, with this, because for our industry, one of the things, and I say this as somebody who has just moved house, that I think is really frustrating is that the consumer, your average consumer, and I think sometimes we have to get our mindset out of knowing the industry as well as we know. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know this industry. And they often think that the likes of Purplebricks have the technology there, that they're the ones that can offer them the platform, the interaction. Oh, you can book an valuation online and it's super easy. And it is super easy. You can go online right now and book an evaluation with Purplebricks. I mean, I had a couple of valuations from online agents, and they really hammer this point home that they are the only people that can offer you this technology. They are the only people that can offer you the transparency that comes with having the technology. And I think that, really your traditional, in inverted commas, or high street agents, the consumer should have the choice, shouldn't have to choose between going with the agent with the best technology that offers them that, or going with potentially, the best agent. What we want to do is give the best local agents better technology than anybody else can offer the consumer. So this was, definitely, there were so many things in terms of so many reasons why we built Street, but that was one of the huge ones. The modern consumer nowadays expects certain things. They expect to be able to do certain things. You order a taxi, you can see where it is and when it arrives. You order a pizza, you can see when it goes in the oven. But when it comes to something as important as selling your biggest asset, you rely and you have to wait on phone calls and emails from your agent. And that was just a huge thing for us, where we thought we can tackle this. We can do this for the better agents, which will just, to be honest, it will completely remove one of the angles that the online agents use in their pitches at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be honest, to be able to do sales progression without actually having to talk to a solicitor, take my money, just take it. I'm ready. I'm ready to sign up now.
Yeah, I would say as well, just going back to the, this isn't for smaller agents. We've had an enormous amount of inquiries from one branch independent agents. That is who, at heart, that's where it's our background. We do want to serve those people, and we are. And the agents that we've got on it at the moment are definitely that type. So, look at, that I really don't want people to think this isn't for the smaller agents, but I think it's on us to communicate the value that you get for £600 a month. And that might be being able to do twice as much with the same amount of people. So yeah, if you look at it in the context of how much a person costs, then it does equate to enormous value, and that is already coming through.
That's a perfect segue for what I'm calling a new section. Right. Oh, shit. Super clever. This is your client's life, Heather and Tom. We spoke earlier. I released him because I have the power to do that from his NDA. We mentioned the person you were alluding to there, or one of the clients that you got on. I think it was the first client outside of your father's business was Jeff Quantrell from Eden Estates. I had to. I think it's fair to say twist your arm, didn't I, Heather? Jeff was starting up his own agency. The absolute thing we've just been talking about, a new agent who's clearly going to be keeping an eye on cash flow and everything else. He knew you at that stage. I don't know what's beyond beta stage, Tom. Is it beta, theta? I don't know, whatever it is. Anyway, alpha, there you go. He knew he was going into it at that stage there. And so I managed to say, look, can you get him in, and he'll obviously help you out with thank you, Phil. And he'll help you out with obviously the testing of the product. Well, I thought if we were if we were catching up with you today, that I should have a bit of a chat with him. So I've had a bit of an interview, and if you can probably get a cup of tea now, and provided this works, because of course half of the stuff I do in the show doesn't work, I've got a little interview that I think goes into a few of the areas we've been talking about. So it is quite long, and there is a bit of a shameless plug for Kerfuffle then, but I think you'll like this. So let me just see if I can get this working.
Why am I nervous?
You really should be.
Oh my God.
The things that I've learned since I knew when I had Street, when we first took Street, but since I've had Street, is that I've won my first ever instruction on a Sunday at 2:00. Just sitting there, and I got a Street notification on my phone saying you've been instructed on 51 Nursery Road, and I was like, Jesus Christ, great. I hadn't done anything. Obviously, first and foremost, from Heather initially to Stella and Catherine, who we've dealt with on a daily basis, they've been first class. So. The little toys that Street provide they're simple to use. The remote versions, easy to use, even for me. So yeah, without question, we've been on it 24/7, and Street is 24/7, isn't it? Yeah, for the consumer as well as us.
And what was your view in terms of the price point? Felt all right for you?
It felt like, look, for us. Look, it was the right price point for us. I mean, again, and I'm being totally honest, there were certain systems I didn't want to look at again, so the list was quite short, and I think when we saw it was a one-horse race. It wasn't okay. There wasn't really anything else to consider. So
what would you say to those people that that are potentially on the wait list? It's worth the wait, yeah, I guess.
100% worth the wait. I mean, again, other than that, repeating what we've said already, I mean, it depends on what they're looking for their business. Again, what sort of juncture they're at. I mean, this is fresh. It's, it is reinventing the wheel to a degree to what's out there at the moment in CRM. So, it's not remodeling a estate agency, but it's definitely the next level and another one of how we interact with our clients.
You came to Street was we were talking and doing one of our what we call supplier MOTs. You were setting up by yourself. Yeah. You wanted to rethink everything. We sat down, didn't we, and listened to what you were wanting to do, and gave you a few recommendations. We also listened to you about this key bit about CRM, didn't we? And in terms of, and I said, well, look, I've come across this product that is literally not even out the tracks yet. And you again were okay to do it. I think you're happy enough with the way we supported you. Obviously, we did have to bend a few arms to make sure we to get that in.
Yeah.
Did that kind of MOT consultative process work for you okay?
listen, Simon. I mean, I think it goes without saying. I mean, you were the first person I reached out to. You know, when we came away from our last project, and there was a list of recommendations, wasn't there? And I think and then when you proposed Street to me, it was very much a case of you couldn't tell me what it was.
No.
You know.
Unusually, I was bound by an NDA that I paid attention to.
Yeah, which we had to sign as well. So we had to sign the NDA shortly after. But no, I mean, look, obviously, we wouldn't have. I hadn't heard them. I don't know if the rumours were out at that point then, because I hadn't heard them. I thought off the beaten track a little bit on really with that. But no, I mean, the role that you played was obviously vital to us with even the introductions to Spectre and Ackaboom and these things we're going to be incorporating in the future. So to say that that's a bit of paramount importance to us would be an understatement. So
obviously you can have the best system in the world and a simple system is there. What's the hand-holding been like from the team at Spectre?
Brilliant. I mean, like I say, the two people we've dealt with on a literally daily basis, and they're coming to us. It's not just to let us know, if there's a problem. Catherine and Stella have been first class, and obviously letting us know when things change. But if you've had a problem, they've been very, very keen to know what the estate agent thinks and wants to happen. They've resolved those things for us, instantly. But it's been a personalised experience. They've looked after us.
Let's ask you the key question here is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you recommend this to a friend or colleague? And obviously it goes without saying that that's not a competitor.
10, without question.
Okay, I assume you won't go legal on him now for breaking his NDA. Look, in all honesty, Heather and Tom, that was why I got a little bit excited. We spent, I mean, it was over an hour and a half, I think, by the time on the phone. I was digging him. Obviously, I was keen. I know what you told me. I know what I'd seen. But the key thing for me here, I was going to say Spectre, the key thing for me here at Kerfuffle is that once we start hearing from people we respect and everything else, that's just worth, people can ignore my recommendations and do ignore my recommendations, but when they can see people like Jeff, who is a absolutely nailed on agent there, talking in such a positive way, we've edited it down to, I think we might edit it down again, but we've got about a 40-minute one where he goes into a lot of detail as well, talking about the stuff he absolutely loves. So we'll share that with you, Heather and Tom, and you can obviously
amazing.
Talk to your team about that. And actually, for anybody else that wants that, if you either join up, it's absolutely free, as we've always said on Kerfuffle. We'll give you access to that, or just join us up on our Kerfuffle Estate and Lettings group on Facebook. So I think he dealt with that pretty neatly, though, didn't he, in terms of price and everything else. And I don't want to say it, but he dealt with the salesperson, the supplier salesperson's most often used line.
It's banned in our company.
It's banned. I told you, you've got to take it back, like certain other, ruder words in the wider world. That elements of you just need more and more listing to pay for that. That wasn't me prompting him. He threw that out himself, and he said he sat there on a Sunday. Oh my God, I've just been instructed, and I didn't have to do anything. That is.
I mean, that is brilliant. And obviously we want people to know that happens. But I think sometimes when it comes from the company itself, you just sound like everybody else, just one more instruction. But yeah, there is a huge element of, because Street gives you that extra functionality for consumers up front, it does give Street agents a head start. It does when it comes to the valuation, along with the valuation reports and everything else. So hopefully soon we'll have lots of juicy numbers to actually report back on, because I think that's where it's going to get really exciting.
I definitely think that's the case. He was talking how sympathetic. We haven't really touched on it, although we've spoke about you going kind of the B2C element there, but how he found it really, really useful to have kind of the Street brand, and this is just from a brand perspective, supporting him in terms of his pitches as well. And as I said, that's something that we've never seen before, is that people actively out there shouting, about the actual CRM system because it's giving them benefits.
Well, hold on one sec. We've produced, it's all been redesigned, but some beautiful co-branded collateral for our agents to take with them on valuations that explains all the benefits that they get from choosing that agent, the WhatsApp, the access to everything. So it is
Tell you what that is. It's funny, you still walk past agents windows now, don't you? And they've tried to they've tried to do this in the past, but the best they've kind of got to is computer networked offices, which doesn't really get across the strength and power of what you're able to do, with those kind of the vendor and applicant portals there, the ability to log in 24/7, to give responses to viewings, to make offers, to be able to, the whole host of things that you've just, Peter's favorite phrase, Peter Knight's, isn't it? It's making the invisible visible. Where appropriate, you've made the invisible visible to your clients, saving them time and money. And so one of the things that Jeff goes on to say is that allowed him to be, some agents, when I used to talk to them, said, oh no, we want to be in control, we want to pick up the phone. There is no agent in the country I know that prefers the phone call than Jeff. But what he said was it allowed him to be much more proactive and actually have a better conversation, because they were already full aware of, if you like, of all the normal stuff.
Yeah, well, we really stress this, don't we, Tom, that this just frees you up to have more conversations. It's not eliminating conversations. But interestingly, there was a huge survey done, and I think it was Zoopla a couple of years ago, where they asked a lot of home movers what their biggest frustrations were with agents and all that sort of stuff. And the number one thing was a lack of transparency. So the consumer's number one frustration was a lack of transparency. And we and our marketing team spent a lot of money and a lot of time looking into what is it that they're talking about there? What transparency do they want? What would help? And sometimes it's just being able to log in and see certain things, like David was saying about sales progression. Log in, see who's holding up the process. Is it you? Tick things off and have a guide through the process. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's giving the consumer the option to see things that they couldn't normally see otherwise. And it also helps to show a lot of the work that the agent is doing for them as well in the background, which often they don't see and they don't know. So yeah, we're really excited at the moment about the feedback we're getting for consumers about their agent and what they're showing them, basically.
Yeah, that's going to be another string to your bow, isn't it? Absolutely. When people start giving those testimonials as well from the clients, it's going to be fantastic. One of the things I just wanted to cover off before, actually, when we were just talking about the integration, I really wanted to just get to the bottom of that. I know, Tom, I think you were quite clear there, but somebody actually had the question, and I did want to pose it because. And it was somebody just made the point, like, if you're using a competitor product like sort of a Repeat, an MRI, or an Agent OS, and they obviously love Street for the front office element, for the sales side of things, but they're very comfortable with the property management and the accounts elements of those systems. Will you still integrate with those guys on the preposition that they would do as well, or is that a no-no?
So first of all, I think we'd be open to integrating with anybody. But I think the crucial part is that with an open API, nobody needs permission or B input to hook the system up to anything. So what generally happens when you release an open API, there's three types of integrations that will be built. We will build integrations ourselves using our own API and then make those available. You'll have independent developers who will create products that basically connect two different things together. So trying to think of a good example, we use a service that connects our Xero to our Stripe. Yep. That's like a third-party service. It's very cheap, and it basically just connects the two together, does a bit of data manipulation and sorts stuff out. And then you've got agents themselves who will build a totally bespoke integration for whatever they need. Now, that will be probably the larger agents because development is expensive.
Yeah.
Basically, independent developers can say, right, okay, I want to connect Street to Repeat, and providing Repeat's API is available and our API is available, there's nothing to stop anyone doing that.
Cool. And what about Tinder?
You want to connect to Tinder?
I had a dream last thing, which is always very dangerous. You jump into Street, you check if the weather's okay, you check the traffic, you go to the lay-by, and it's dating catnip. I mean, It's absolutely, it's a powerhouse. You got something for your public life.
We were doing so well until then. So well. We got a whole hour. A whole
If I
hour.
don't get it out, David, you know my brain explodes.
Well, was it OpenAPI?
Just
you know,
on the APIs. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Tom, that, I think a lot of people have said, what, going back to the question at the start, what about letting stuff? Why have you built it without lettings? Realistically, with how open we've built it and how fast we're innovating, it's not going to be long before it does offer everything. And obviously, at some point, you have to go out and say, here we are. This is what we've built and this is where we're going. And I think some people are like, yeah, but give me a date on the letting side. Well, just be reassured that it's coming.
Your work, I know more than anyone, you're throwing as much resource at this as you can do to get it up there. I mean, Christ, there's not a developer in Manchester that doesn't know you're hiring at the moment. So look, I just think it's one of the companies you've got to get on. And look, I should say as well, obviously I'm a huge fan of yours, and people sort of say, well, isn't it your job to be neutral? No, my job is to be incredibly biased. The Kerfuffle site itself is where people will decide whether a company is good, great, or otherwise. There, I encourage everybody at Kerfuffle to take their own view. Whether that's Rich Durant from our side, Paul Morgan, any of our team there. Me and David haven't agreed on pretty much anything other than we like this. He still thinks that the stand-up routine at Agents Giving was a complete failure. I particularly liked it, but that's a different place. Guys, I want to say congratulations again. It's obviously it's hugely exciting seeing something like this come out in what had been, let's be honest, a bit of an area that was getting a little bit dull. So you've really sparked things off. Dave, would you have anything else to add on that?
Thank you for making CRM sexy again.
There you go. There's your quote.
I love that comment with our UX designer, because he's called Z, and somebody said bringing Zexy back, and I was like, yeah, I like that. Will.
Great. Tom, Heather, congratulations. Wish you all the very best with it, and we'll catch up soon. Do keep us obviously up to date. Any of those exclusives, knock them over here.
Thanks for having us.